Give a
Yeah,
thumbs
you're
up if
good.
you see. Okay. All right. So I already told you guys who I am. So I want to know, it seems like the chat function is working. So I want folks to kind of envision this and start with a quick question. Kind of close your eyes and envision what you think an orthopedic surgeon or physician looks like. And I want you to go ahead and drop in the chat in one word what comes to mind when you think about an orthopedic surgeon. All right. I'm seeing a lot of bones and x-rays, all very good. Injuries, inspiration, fractures, ligaments, hip, sports, scrubs, x-rays. Yes. Love it all. I'm sure as those populate, that kind of populates. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit because kind of for me, a long time, the world has a very narrow view of what a surgeon can look like. And so in my world, I don't see a lot of surgeons in orthopedics, and physicians that look like me. I'll share some statistics with you guys a little bit, but in terms of really my mission overall is really to shatter the vision that a surgeon can look a certain way, and or especially in orthopedics. So in my day job, I do fix broken bones of children. I help to correct deformities, and I help children to walk, run, and play. And so really, I also want to share kind of in my creative life as well that I write books to make sure every single one of you can see yourselves in a white coat. And so today we're really going to focus on some of the realities of this pathway because it's not easy. All of you are here pre-med today and kind of see how you can forge your own. So again, I'm Dr. Melissa Bent. In terms of my trajectory, not going to spend too much time in terms of all the academic milieu, but I'm a first generation immigrant. I moved from Jamaica with my parents to the United States when I was 6. Um, Both of my parents have a high school education. They did not go to college. And so navigating that pathway, I'm sure many of you may already have had challenges with that. And I was fortunate enough to go to undergraduate at University of Miami. I was raised in Florida, here in the States. I went to Morehouse School of Medicine, which is a historically Black college and university, and graduated from my med school class. I actually went to orthopedic surgery training, which is why I kind of highlight that a little bit. I did 3 years and decided I did not want to be in an operating room. And I switched my residency program to the University of California, San Francisco, which is what led me here to be in California, and then completed my fellowship in what's called non-operative pediatric orthopedics or pediatric orthopedic medicine instead of surgery at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell. Everyone has their own journey, and hopefully we can go through that. So really want to kind of focus. Many of you are pre-med and in the trenches in the classroom, and kind of hard to see like what the big picture is and what the light is ahead outside of the classroom. So, in terms of just want to highlight representation because I want to be honest with who I am. I am a Black woman that is in medicine. And so I think that representation really matters, especially when it's medicine, not only for our patients. So, having patients that see doctors that look like them, that speak the same language is very important because in healthcare, you're engendering trust from someone, especially in surgery where you are actually really altering someone's life through your intervention. So this QR code, if you guys want to scan, it is for a program called Nth Dimensions. It was founded by Dr. Bonnie Mason Simpson, who was also a Morehouse graduate. She came to me in my medical school during my first year at Morehouse, and she did a program where she had us all do sawbones. And so we were there, we were cutting bones, we were putting in implants. It was something that I had never seen. And even a backstory to that is I actually had a club foot as a child. And so I had many orthopedic surgeries growing up. Never really envisioned myself doing it per se because I did not see any doctors that cared for me that looked like me. But I think it's important to just understand in terms of having that vision and that visualization and knowing what the path consists of. So again, A lot of the myths to bust. The pre-med myth is kind of this trajectory traditionally. I think you guys' generation and many people are kind of breaking through that in terms of kind of this curvilinear pathway to medicine. So these are kind of the things I shared in terms of my trajectory. But I took a year off undergrad to do post-bac. My undergrad GPA was not strong. I had to take the MCAT twice. Even after completing my pediatric residency, I took my pediatric boards twice. So failure is not something that is a deterrent. I think it fuels you to go further. So if you have failed the last test last semester or struggling in a certain course, you get the help you need and you push forward. So and don't let go of this if this is something you really want to commit to. So let's kind of switch into, sorry, what orthopedics is. So orthopedics is really the care, the entire care of the musculoskeletal system. And right now in pediatric orthopedics, it's a really exciting time because it's not just surgery. Many of the interventions have been traditionally surgery, but you take care of children, and children are amazing because they heal really fast. And so a lot of the interventions in orthopedics actually don't require surgery. And so I think that that has led to kind of the development of my field, pediatric orthopedic medicine, which has been around for about 15 years now. So in orthopedics, we're not just treating x-rays, we are treating growing, thriving children, and it really is treating their entire family. And so for me, it's very rewarding. But in medicine, there's so many different subspecialties. And so, sorry guys, there's so many different subspecialties, and so you have to kind of choose, like it's like the Harry Potter sorting hat. You got to choose which house works for you, which team works for you. So, in addition to kind of orthopedics and medicine overall, I know everyone here is pre-med and probably wants to be a physician, but I want to share that there are other pathways too. This medicine is a team sport, especially surgical specialties. And so while you may have kind of the physician kind of, I don't want to say at the top, but kind of the patient is in the middle and everybody else is kind of around that. So we have physician assistants, nurses, cast techs, all of these people are important. In the next few slides, I'm going to try to share some video from my staff, kind of outlining their education trajectory. If you cannot hear the audio, I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and try to run through this.
Hi everyone, my name's Kristen. I'm a physician
Hopefully you can hear
assistant here at
that.
Children's Hospital in the orthopedic
I don't know if
department.
anyone has their headphones. They
My
could give
job
thumbs
roles
up if
are
they
that I see
hear or you
patients,
can't hear
I
anything.
diagnose and treat injuries, I
Anything?
assist in surgery,
No? Okay,
and I
perfect.
can
Thank you.
place and order medications if needed. My training was I did my undergrad in kinesiology and then I went to USC to get my physician assistant's degree.
Great. So that's Kristen. That's the pathway of physician assistant, and it's usually 2 years as opposed to 4 years in medical school of training, and they come out making six figures. Next, we'll hear from
Hi
Jessica.
everyone, my name is Jessica Garcia. I'm a registered nurse here at Children's Hospital Orthopedic Center. So for schooling, I went to Mount St. Mary's. I did 2 years of prereqs, and then I did 3 years on the actual nursing program on the other campus at Chalon. I am currently working the orthopedic department. My role as a registered nurse is taking care of the patients, making sure that I get all the triaging done the day before, making sure where each patient needs to go, like if they need casting, x-rays, or if they just need to come straight to clinic. I provide a lot of education, such as the cast care, how to take care of a cast, also pre-op education, so like what I need to do before having the surgery and what's going to happen post-op as well. I also make sure all the equipment is set up so that the day of surgery, patients can go home with all their equipment that they need. I also assist the providers and doctors with like pin removal, or if we're having like Botox, helping them set up. And I answer a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls from parents, and they have like, oh, my child is having too much pain, what should I do? Also, like a lot of paperwork for the schools, what they cannot do, restrictions, and any phone calls, any questions or concerns that parents have, it's my role to answer them and find the best resources to help them out.
That's Jessica, and then last is Enrique.
2, 3. Hello, guys. My name is Enrique. I'm in orthotech here at CHLA. I started in the field about 10 years ago, and I like every second of it. Every day is a learning experience. And in regards to training, there is a program I know that in Rio Hondo for orthopedic technicians. So if you guys are interested, look into that. Otherwise, you can also learn on the job. Uh, so hope you guys have a great day.
Great. So I just wanted to highlight other folks on the team that are just important in other career paths that you may not have heard of. So medicine is a long road. I think I was calculating last night. It took me about from graduating high school to kind of getting my first job after fellowship, it took about 15 to 16 years. So definitely a long trajectory and not sure where everybody is on this path. But traditionally, at least here in the United States, 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of med school. And if you're doing a non-surgical residency program, those are usually 3 years. If you are doing a surgical residency, such as orthopedic surgery, it is 5 to 6 years, usually if there's a research year. So it is a long road. I want to be upfront about that. But you can do it if you really want to. And so I think it really matters at every stage you are. So during high school, you want to show academic excellence. You want to be in extracurriculars, leadership, volunteerism. Many of you have already done. In undergrad, you want to be able to show not only having a strong academic commitment, and you do not need to be pre-med major. I was neuroscience just because I was trying to go between should I get a PhD or an MD. But I had people in my med school that was philosophy, economics. So you do not need to do hard sciences, just have the prereqs. And I also was on the admissions committee for 3 years at Keck School of Medicine. And so know kind of what folks are looking for. They want to see leaders. They want to see real life experience, advocacy, and that story. It's more about progress than it is about getting that perfect 4.0 GPA. And then the work does not end after you get into medical school. It continues, right? You got to be careful in terms of your boards, choosing your specialty. Some specialties are more, quote, competitive than others, but I think it's more important about finding where you're comfortable, finding where you land. So in orthopedics, we treat many congenital issues, so things that people are either born with or they acquire, such as scoliosis. I'm not sure if I won't be able to see you guys, but not sure if anybody in the room knows somebody with scoliosis or had scoliosis. It's pretty common out there in the population, and so some children do need surgery, and it's amazing what my surgical colleagues can do by putting in these rods and taking this crooked spine and making it straight. And the same with the feet. So I do a lot of clubfoot casting with babies. I don't necessarily do surgery, but it's amazing what we're able to do in orthopedics with straightening curved bones. So I'm going to take this time now to kind of go into the clinic. So we're going to do a case. I'm not sure if our host is able to put some poll questions. Otherwise, we can just do it from the chat. I don't think that that's a problem. So we're gonna everybody here is becoming an orthopedic surgeon right now. And so you're in clinic, it's 3 p.m., and in walks an 11-year-old gymnast. She fell down during practice and now has acute elbow pain, or actually elbow and wrist pain. So she's in your clinic. So the question is, what do you do now? And so she can't fully bend her arm. There's swelling. Oops, there's swelling at her joints. Yes, thank you for putting up the poll. So if you guys want to go ahead, let me get my stuff so you can get your look at her images here. And you don't even have to be a surgeon. Something is not right. Something is broken here. So go ahead and I'm curious to see what you guys say in terms of helping me out in my practice. All right. We got quite a few across the board. We got about 30 seconds left. So let's get our answers in. All right. Final 10 seconds left. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. So let's go ahead and look at the results. Let's see what you guys said. Oops. So a lot for ordering an MRI, some for putting her in a splint and letting her rest, and some for taking her to the operating room. So I'm happy all of you didn't say stretch it out and come back in a week. That is the wrong answer. A lot of things with orthopedics, in some cases, in terms of an MRI, if you are worried about neurovascular structures being compromised, then sometimes we do get some what call advanced imaging. And then really the takers and then head her to the operating room. Actually, the first thing we try in orthopedics is sometimes a reduction of the injury, and sometimes we can just do that in the emergency room or a splint to let her rest. So the answer is putting her in a splint and letting her rest. So thank you guys for participating in that. And this is kind of again the decision tree. So sorry, I'm trying to see where to put my camera, but doctors really we think systematically. And so we check the patient, we do the exam, and first you want to make sure is the hand are the hands pink or are they white? And is there any swelling? Next, you want to look at the fracture. And the way to look at the fracture is, like many of you guys said, through the x-rays. You want to immobilize first. So immobilize means basically putting the bone and trying to set the bone straight and letting it rest. We want some of that swelling to go down. Even if we go back and do a surgery, we want sometimes for us to not do the surgery right then and there. Sometimes in some fractures we do wait. And that's because some fractures do affect something called the growth plate. So that's the area of the bones that allow your bones to kind of grow longitudinally this way. And then we get a long-term plan. So thank you guys for participating in that. So again, the biggest things, like I said, it's important to kind of look at the pulse. So checking, putting my fingers here, checking her pulse. Obviously, we have machines now. If you put a pulse oximeter on the finger, it also will read the heart rate. But the pulse is the main thing to check, and the nerve function by having you go thumbs up, okay sign, and crossing your fingers. And that checks all your nerves in your hands that are important. So, oops. Oh, sorry. A question that everyone had. So, I had a video on Instagram about kind of cast removal. And so, putting on a cast, I don't know how many folks, in terms of raising your hand, have had cast before. Not necessarily a fun thing. But I'm going to show you this quick video that one of our orthopedic residents made about removing the cast. Hopefully, you can hear the video as well. So, I'm going to go ahead and play that. So, sorry.
If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough.
Oh, sorry, guys. I don't know if my Wi-Fi is not working. Oh, might work, it might not. Sorry, guys. It was a pretty big file. Okay. Well, this is kind of the way we do cast removal. Sorry that it is not working. But yes, it is a saw. It is a real saw. We go ahead and usually remove that cast and split it open. So hopefully, sorry that it's not loading. Maybe the team can share it with you when I am finished with the presentation. Sorry. And then, oops.
If you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be
Sorry, it keeps trying to play it. We can
tough.
try one more time. Sorry. Yep, it just doesn't want to play. So we're gonna move forward
Hi, I'm
here.
Lindsay.
So, so I just want to show kind of these last two slides because a lot of folks they think, okay, they get very wrapped up in the academics and the pathway to being a doctor, and that's great. But you also have to live, right? You have to live life. So I wear many different hats. One of them is like I think I told you guys in undergrad, I've always been interested in research. So in high school, I was doing science fair competitions. In undergrad, I did research projects and I got NIH funding to do a 2-year research project. Research has always been something that I've been a part of, even to now as a full adult. I just got out of a 3-year NIH award, and I'm very interested in terms of how we can help patients outside of the clinic walls. One-on-one interaction, it fuels me. It makes me very happy to tell a kid that they can go back to playing their sports after treating their broken bone or seeing a baby walk that I had been casting since they were 2 weeks old. But beyond that, I want to be able to help children on a macro level. And so part of the questions that were asked by the team was about clinical research. And so compared to research where we're doing pipettes and bench work, which may really excite some people here, and that's great. That doesn't really fuel me, and I don't have the resources for it. But in clinic, we're always asking questions about how can we, if we see a problem, right, in terms of good science principles, how can we improve and make things better? And so I work with a lot of children with a condition called cerebral palsy, which can cause damage to the brain when they are at birth. And they can have, develop a lot of orthopedic consequences from that. They can have kind of stiff muscles and joints. And so, one way in terms of thinking, how can we get them to move? Because a lot of these children long term do need physical therapy into adulthood. And so I partner, I do enjoy innovation. So I'm going to give kind of 2 examples here of some startups that I work with. I'm also part of something called a FDA. I don't know if you've heard of the FDA. They have a med tech accelerator program. And so my hospital, as well as Lurie Children's, is a site that helps to fund startup companies in terms of improving medical devices for children, because children often are lagging in terms of approval for medical devices. Sometimes we have to use adult things and try to like pare it down, and children are not small adults. And so it's really been a privilege to work with that organization. And through that, I've been able to meet a couple startups. So I'm going to start with the actual one on the right. So we saw the broken bones. We saw the kiddo that we needed to kind of do, put them in a splint. There is this kind of traditional cast here that I kind of showed a picture for in that video that didn't work, that hard fiberglass cast. I think we have time in the chat. If you can help me, moderator, with that, if you could just let me know. Just a poll. Has anyone can put in the chat? Have you had a chance? Have you had a cast before? Have you broken a bone before? Just yes. I see the numbers going up, so it looks like quite a few. Has it been quite a few? Sorry, our moderator here. If you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm just getting it
Yeah.
posted up.
Yeah, yeah. No, it doesn't have it can just be organic. It looks like quite a few people have responded in the chat. I just don't want to press the chat and then I lose I lose my
Oh,
presentation.
yes. Seems like about a 50-50 split almost.
Okay, so you guys are an active group. So I'm sure being in a cast was not fun. It gets itchy, there's skin issues, and sometimes you have to be in it anywhere from 2 weeks to 8 weeks. And so partnered with a founder, her name is Ashley Moy. She has this really cool kind of like cast where it's this hard resin that goes in this 3D printed cast. And really, the goal was it to kind of allow flexibility. She's marketing it as like being a waterproof cast. And so a lot of kids, they break their bone, but they want to continue their activities. They want to go to the pool. I live in Southern California, so folks want to be active. And so partnered with her, we're currently finishing up a clinical research study. So clinical meaning we're dealing with patients and it's in the clinic. And the goal is to see, can this work in kids and really kind of help in terms of being an equivalent model to the hard traditional cast that many of you maybe have already had. And then I'm going to play this little video about kind of showing the other project that I was working on, which was dealing with using a mobile app using augmented reality. There's a lot of research right now using augmented or virtual reality to get kids to move. And we want children with cerebral palsy to have that resource. So I'm going to try to play this video by the founder of this other startup that I've worked with.
Watson. I'm the co-founder and CEO.
Oops. Maybe this video won't work either. Sorry, guys. Oops.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Watson. I'm the co-founder and CEO.
Sorry, guys. Everything is buffering today. So anyway, the company is called Augment Therapy. They're great. And so pretty much they have a bunch of kind of games, flying games that the kids can move their arms and move their bodies. So another thing in terms of kind of what I want to close with is knowing your why, knowing that you want to be a doctor, not because all of your uncles and aunties are doctors or because your parents told you to be doctors, but really kind of finding your why and sticking to it. Especially, I showed you that this pathway is it's a long road. It's not an easy road, as you've heard from probably many of the other speakers that you've heard it through this summit and series. You got to find your outlet. So I really do enjoy children. I am actually a mother of two kids myself. And so for me, it was very important in terms of like representation, which I started with, and diversity. So about 2 years ago, I wrote a children's book called The ABCs of Women in Medicine. Women make up about 34% of practicing doctors across the board, so still a minority. And then I am a woman of color, and so there's even less numbers in terms of us. And so I really wanted all kids, definitely girls, in terms of encouraging them in STEM careers. But as you can see, there are two little boys here. And so I think all kids can kind of be inspired and learning about the different medical specialties. So writing was an outlet for me. Don't get limited. I think even if wherever you are in your stage, if like your dream is to write a book, go ahead and do it. There's so many things that people can do nowadays, a book, a podcast, folks, in terms of like letting out your creative outlet. And guess what, guys? When you do put it on your resume, when you are applying to all these things, it also makes you memorable in terms of when you are talking at an interview about kind of like what your hobbies and interests are. And you will light up, and an interviewer can see that you're really passionate about whatever your passion is. But finding your why in medicine is so important, and being able to have an outlet when things get stressful. So whether it's going to the gym, whether it's traveling when you can, whether it's cooking, I think everybody should find something or continue to cultivate kind of your why. So this is just a picture of my book. This is my handle. And so, kind of closing up in terms of this talk, just wanted to kind of give us a spot for kind of academics and the path of medicine just in general. So I think it's important to find kind of really four, but we'll focus on these three core folks. Finding a mentor, right? Mentorship helps with advice and guidance. Mentors have been crucial to my path going forward at every step of my journey. Sometimes it is organic, sometimes they try to like pair you with a mentor, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You got to kind of figure it out in terms of it's like matchmaking. And so I think in terms of programs like this, getting involved in your undergraduate programs for pre-meds, especially their pre-med groups for people of color, such as the Student National Medical Association for African American and Black medical students. There's the LMSA for Latino Medical Student Association. There's all different kinds of organizations that have speakers that give testing resources, tutoring. So it's important to kind of like find a mentor in terms of guiding you on this pathway. Another term that's very important is sponsorship. So somebody who is going to advocate for you in the room. So advocate for you in terms of like writing your letters of recommendation, um, advocate for you to get opportunities to speak, to present research if that's something you're interested in. So a sponsor is critical because they can kind of open the doors for you. And then distinguishing a coach. So a coach kind of helps to guide you through the process. A mentor may be for like a specific research project or kind of general hand wavy mentorship. A coach really knows like who you are, what your GPA is, what challenges you've had. Like, let's say you've had some medical challenges or financial challenges. And a coach kind of helps you to strategize through it. So I think all of those things are important. I want you to kind of be able to be confident, advocating for yourself. It's hard to kind of cold email people you've never met. Adults, we can be scary. Just find somebody in terms of like that is approachable, you think you'll jive with. And if they say no, don't take it as an offense because a lot of times, like for me, I have a lot of folks that approach me for mentorship. But within the last year, I just had a baby last year. And so for my life stage, it wasn't a point where I could give it to mentees as much. And so I think if someone says no, it may be just a no for right now. And then you be persistent and chat with them later if you want to chat with them. So. I think we have time now. Sorry, I've kind of run through things here, but this is your time, and so I want to do a Q&A. And then in terms of we will have it kind of moderated. I have these kind of like if we could kind of focus the first 10 minutes on just like academics, lifestyle, or we can just organically go through everyone possible. So thank you guys for your time and your attention this early in the morning. Appreciate it. I see a lot of hands raising, so
Yeah, so as usual, guys, I'll call in some hands and then Dr. Kent will answer. But if you can't unmute yourself for whatever reason, you can post questions in the chat, and if I see some that haven't been answered that are good, I'll just pose them to her myself in between. Um, so first we'll have Dean.
Hello. I was just
hi, Dean.
curious on your journey with the MCAT and like I guess how you processed it and like what your plan with like fulfilling it was and like did you have to retake it or how do you study for it or when did you start like prepping for it?
Yeah, it's a good question for I'm like a dinosaur compared to you guys. I think my test was the last paper test that they offered before going to computers. But yeah, the MCAT was hard. I did have to retake it. I did really well in the writing section, not so well in the physical science section. And even by saying that, I have no idea what the MCAT is structured right now as. But yeah, for me, so during my junior year, I did sign up for like a Kaplan course that I like kind of half did, not so enthusiastically, but I got all the resources from it. And so I did kind of strategize kind of during my senior year, like towards the end, like that summer, to take it. Because when I took the MCAT, they only offered it in April and August. And so yeah, a lot of long nights at the library, a lot of kind of rewatching the Kaplan videos. I think the MCAT and just test taking in general, I am not a good test taker and get a lot of text testing anxiety. And so I think for me, it was like knowing what to expect. So I did things in terms of doing questions. I was a question fiend. And then it's like once you do the question, you deconstruct why each question, like you go through the answer stem because there are themes. And so I think in terms of approaching things is like test taking, and being able to kind of go through each of the answer choices and reason why it's not this answer. And then if I was weak on something, I would go back to it, and kind of figure out like a concept. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go do that whole thing with the blood vessels and the the mathematical formula for that, and I'd go back to that section. So, not sure, Dean, if that answers your question, but that's kind of my approach.
No, that was fine. Thank you.
Mhm.
Next we have Scarlett.
Hi, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation.
You're
I was just
welcome.
wondering, how do you help the children feel less anxious about the treatment or the surgery, and how do you get them, like, get those treatment without backing out?
Yeah, so working with kids is really a privilege. I think you got to get on their level, right? So I don't go in a room with a white coat. I address the child first when I enter the room, unless the kid is, a baby. I'll address the parents first, but I typically address the kids first. I sit down, I get on their level. I try to make it a game and approachable. And you got to get the families on board. It's as much as getting the kids and the families on board in terms of trust. And I kind of I give kids an outline of what we're doing at the visit. So I say, like, hey, Timmy, Tommy, whoever, I'm gonna ask you and your parents some questions. I'm gonna watch you walk and exercise and move your arms and legs. And then I'm gonna go over some pictures that we took and kind of really just make it in terms of um, language that they can understand. And sometimes even doing that, it's not a good day. Or again, I deal with kids that have neuromuscular issues. So many of them just cognitively, you can't talk to them and have a dialect. But even like knowing, okay, I ask the parents, okay, your kid has autism or they have something else going on. Are they okay with touch? Are they not okay with touch? And a lot of pediatrics is observation. So hope that answers your question, Scarlett.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next, we have Fahimi.
Good morning, Dr. Ben. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. I was wondering, what has been your most challenging cases so far, and how were you able to persevere through that particular case?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I think that I've had a lot of challenging cases. I think that for me, medicine, it's less been about the cognitive part than really kind of the social dynamics. So there
Mm-hmm.
was a kiddo that I had to treat with clubfoot, who was in the hospital. Their
Mm-hmm.
parents were really against all medical care, and the not my team, but the pediatric team had to get the like a court order to get treatment for the child. And so it was very challenging in terms of navigating the dynamics of wanting to respect the parents' wishes, but also wanting the child to thrive and being able to give them that treatment. That child, luckily, with clubfoot, only 5% of the kiddos don't need a surgery. And so luckily he was a kiddo that fit into that 5%, and I'm happy he didn't need anything further. And he's doing great now that he's now like 6 and running around. But I think it's the social dynamics of things. I've had patients where we learn with like meeting and actually speaking to the patient that
Mm-hmm.
they were homeless or some things. And we have a social worker in our clinic that helps us out, which is a big deal. We have patients who, even coming to our hospital, it's like 2, 3 hours away. And so we help with transportation. So for me, it's really kind of navigating not the medicine part of what I learned, but really that like social piece of things that they don't teach us in medical school.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Lucas.
Hi, Dr. Ben. Thank you for sharing this morning. I really enjoyed your
Oh,
talk
yes.
and like how comprehensive you covered your journey. I just wanted to ask, in especially in undergrad and med school, how did you go about finding those wonderful opportunities that helped you develop your love for medicine?
Yeah, so good question. Thank you, Lucas. So I think that for me, I was I so yeah, so for me, I knew I wanted to go to medical school, and I kind of reverse engineered, okay, these are the requirements for medical school. Like you got to have volunteer service, you got to have research. And so kind of went through the checkbox, but I was organic in terms of like finding what I was passionate about. So I volunteered at a local children's hospital. And that was a great experience because it really helped solidify that I don't want to just be in a lab and not talk to patients. And so that was super helpful. I was part of the Student National Medical Association and went to their conferences, and I was able to hear doctors speak. I was able to meet people from different specialties. And that was super helpful. They hosted conferences on the MCAT and test taking. They did conferences on like, okay, if your GPA isn't strong or you're a first generation, applying to medical school, no shade to Harvard medical school. If that's people's admissions, it was not. I just wanted to become a doctor at all costs. I want to get into medical school. I don't care where it is. And so you have to know what your threshold and mentality is. And so I didn't apply to schools that required like very high GPAs to like get into. And you got to be able to, I think, take rejection and not take things personally. Because a lot of us are so up into academics and succeeding that you like take it personal if things don't always work out according to plan. So I think having that open-mindedness and being able to pivot is important. And you won't know that unless you know folks. And then, like I said, I did that research opportunity, which I met other folks that were kind of on the pre-med path and got to kind of speak to them in terms of what they were doing and not getting anxious, like, oh, they're doing this, I'm not doing this, but like, oh, I didn't know about that opportunity. And so I think that just willingness to be open, willingness to put yourself out there makes a huge difference.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Next up we have Hannah.
Hi, Dr. Bent. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really cool to like understand everything from your perspective about
Thanks,
what
Hannah.
you do. Um, so I guess my question was, so I remember in the beginning you were explaining how you like to like build trust with your patients and connect with them, especially since they're kids. And since you are a physician who is like a woman in color, and especially since you work with kids, like how do you think like you best do that in like your daily life as a physician? And then building up on that, like, do you think because you do that, it changes like the way healthcare can be viewed?
Yeah, so big question, Hannah, not simple at all. But thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's a larger conversation in terms of being a woman of color. So coming through my training, I am used to being one or one of few or one in a room in terms of when we're thinking from the medical doctor side. And so um, I've had, working with colleagues that don't look like me and really trying to like assert myself through that, but being genuine to like who I am. Like I'm an introverted person, I'm not an extroverted person. And so that's kind of my journey also as I transitioned out of orthopedic surgery. The environment for me where I was at the time just wasn't lending to who I was, and being the only person of color was very isolating at the time, and being one of three women in the program was isolating. I switched to pediatrics, which is more women dominated, and but still was not a lot in terms of some of that diversity piece. And so I think really having your village outside of the hospital walls is super important, the classroom walls. So like having your family around or having them like at least accessible now through like Zoom or FaceTime or whatever is super important. So you don't lose sight of who you are when you're in those settings in terms of being uncomfortable. From the patient facing side, I initially did get a lot of questions, and I still do sometimes, like, oh, you're the doctor. I thought you were the janitor. I thought you were the physical therapist, the secretary, the nurse. Can you change my bedpan? Can you give me directions? Like, I get a lot of that, and there's been research out there, just women in general in medicine. They have a lot more responsibilities because sometimes people are trusting of us more. And so I think that kind of trying to balance that out with, okay, this person feels comfortable, but also making my boundaries in terms of like, okay, this is where I have to like have you see somebody else. Like I before I was taking a lot of my patient emails directly. Now I have an assistant to help me with that, just because of kind of creating that boundary, if you will. So, and yeah, so I think in terms of like how you deal with the population not seeing you as a doctor, I think it's really just it's over time just I think even just you being in the room is important and you getting comfortable in terms of like that whole thing with imposter syndrome and battling that. I battle imposter syndrome to this day. In terms of like even speaking to you guys, I was like, oh, I'm speaking to students. Like, who am I? Like, so you have to like kind of compartmentalize things, not take things personally, and have your team and village there for when the days are hard and you unfortunately are discriminated against or something bad happens that you're like, well, why did it happen this way? And really try to like troubleshoot, ground yourself in your why and go from there. Hope that answers your question, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Dr. Kent, can I add a personal anecdote if you don't mind?
Oh yeah, of course.
So most of the participants know, but I've worked for a transplant surgeon as a research student, and while I was there, I went to clinic a lot to help with consenting, and I got to shadow a lot of the surgeons. And the fellow there was when I was there was a very short woman of Middle Eastern descent. And there were multiple times when I, walk into the room with her, and even though, like, I'm in like, semi-formal clothes because it's clinic and you have to look presentable, and she's in scrubs, um, like we were mistaken as I'm the doctor and she's, the nurse or my assistant or anything like that, and um, I it was a really wide awakening for me. Um, Not necessarily because I hadn't thought it existed, but mainly because I hadn't had spent actual time in a clinic setting and seen it and witnessed it myself. Um, and so I think it's like the biggest thing, like you said, is that the village is there to support you, and like it is important that when anyone who is, like I'm, fortunate that like I present as a white male, and that is like the thought of by the masses is what a doctor should look like a lot of the time. That like I'm there for her as well, even though like we had just kind of gotten to know each other on a working relationship. Like immediately, I'm like, no, this is Doctor X, and like she's like incredible. Like I'm a student. Like this is who you should be talking to, and like not playing into any of the the misconceptions and all that.
Yeah, no, great story and great antidote. And importance of like allyship, I think, is important. And we all have biases, right? And so I think as most of us come out there, I think it's important on all sides to kind of have that in mind. And yeah, I have no residents with me. They're always like, well, the doctor already came in, and I have to kind of re reach a teachable moment that I am the supervising doctor, and you just say, hey, I am the doctor. And so some cases it works out, and sometimes you have allies that go to bat for you. So thanks for sharing.
No problem. Next up is Grace.
Hi. I was wondering what makes an undergraduate student applying for medical school stand out from your experience and how advocacy plays a role. Because I'm in like a few different like advocacy groups like in healthcare and then also like for first responders and stuff. So I was wondering like how all of those pieces plays a role because there's so many different parts of like a med school application I'm learning. So from your experience, what like makes it stand out?
Yeah, how to stand out. Cure cancer. No, I'm just kidding. So, really to stand out, I think for me, and I would ask you to reframe, Grace. I think it's like, how can I show in terms of my passion for like what I'm doing? And that passion will translate on your personal statement. That passion will translate when you're getting your secondary applications from AMCAS. The passion is what is going to fuel things as opposed to like how can I stand out? So, when I was on the admissions committee for 3 years, a lot of folks are doing like gap year, they're doing scribing. And so, like, everybody kind of like blended together after a while. But for me, what I found that really stand out was folks having a strong like why and passion about, for example, they're doing global health advocacy. They can, as you go through this, even journaling after you're doing some of these volunteer experiences. And that way that journaling becomes your patient story. You're okay, in my application, there was this one family that was a refugee family, and they really, I was able to do this for them, or it gave me insight, even if it was just like an observership, just seeing that kind of, percolated these thoughts of X, Y, and Z. So I think it's like being intentional about the experiences, journaling about them so you don't forget it, even if it's a quick audio note, and like being able to solidify that in your bank, right? You're collecting experiences to have a bank of telling your story about why you should become a doctor, and why I'm gonna just use some names here. Why Sanvi shouldn't be a doctor, or why should they accept you over Turker or something like that. And Sanvi, I'm no or Turker, no offense to you guys. You just who's coming up on my feed. But like I think that that's probably more of the way I would go about things, because also you have limited time, right? You got to be able to get out there. You got to have your vacation. You got to have your family. Um, and you're a person. So it's great to do all these things, but don't burn yourself out.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Well, speaking of Sanvi, you're next.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Bet. I really
Hey,
loved your presentation and this field of orthopedic pediatrics. It's really like intriguing to learn about.
thank
And
you.
during your presentation, you mentioned that you do a lot of research, right? So I wanted to know what was your favorite research opportunity that you've gotten so far?
Yeah, so for me, it really was exciting. My last research project, which I'm still kind of closing out, has been the one with children with cerebral palsy. So it was really interesting for me to learn in terms of like research design, meeting with a startup and approaching them to do the study, um, having them change their app to accommodate kids with this condition, and really expanding how they can use their app to market to different kids. I have no IP or commercial like relationship with this company. Um, and so I think it was really helpful because we also did like interviews with the family. So usually I'm doing like a lot of orthopedics is doing what we call retrospective chart reviews. So taking data we already have and like looking back. But this project I was able to prospectively like look at patients, and so see where they are, have them do a 4 week trial with the app. And then we interviewed the families when they were done. So I was able to hear, I wouldn't get on a survey, did you like the app or not? But it was like, hey, the app was really hard to do because we live in a 1 bedroom apartment with 5 people in our family. And so we can't do this app because we don't have room in our apartment. So I would have never gotten that information if it was a survey. So that has been my favorite part of really kind of learning research methodology, learning more about my patient experiences. And then I think it also helps me in the clinic when I'm writing for like patients to get a wheelchair, which it doesn't sound super exciting, but it transforms kids' lives and parents' lives. So hope that answered your question. So,
Yes, thank you so much.
mhm.
Next up is Turker.
Hi, Miss Dr. Bent. Um, I really liked your presentation. I found it really interesting. I also want to become a sports medicine doctor. And
Great.
I was gonna ask, what are some classes you have taken that made you discover your passion of becoming a pediatric orthopedic surgeon? And did you do anything outside of like school related stuff like teams, clubs, sports?
Yeah, good question, Turker. And yes, sports med, there's tons. There's an organization called uh I'm blanking on the the whole acronym stands for, but AMSSM, the American Sports Medicine Association. Like, sorry, I'm totally messing up the acronym, but you can Google them. They have mentorship opportunities for students, so definitely get in. It's never too early. So classes. So I really, because I was neuroscience, I kind of had it built in to do all the kind of pre-med classes already in terms of from an undergrad standpoint. But I also knew that this would be undergrad would be the last time to take like European history or African history or other things like that. So I think like doing other courses and enriching your undergrad experience is super important, not just like checking off a checklist in terms of what you do need for medical school, right? Like I don't think anything has changed from biology, organic chemistry, physics, all the heavy hitters. But beyond that, taking things that really kind of show your full experience, I think is important. Number two, regarding organization stuff. So I am not athletic. I went to the gym and everything, but was not part of a team per se. I did a lot of kind of like student government work on my college campus. And I was able to do like be an RA. And so I think those were cool things that I was able to kind of do during undergrad. But I think that definitely athletes that become doctors are huge. Musicians that become doctors become huge. And it also becomes part of your story. What sports do you do, Tucker? Sorry.
I'm a swimmer and I also play
Swimmer.
piano.
Awesome. Yes, keep doing those things. Don't let medicine beat it out of you. Thanks for your question.
Thank you.
I have a question from someone who can't unmute their mic, and they want to know about the orthopedic lifestyle, and what are the things that you like to do to manage your balance between work and family travel and, getting to participate in events like coming here today.
Yeah, so good question. So I think I want to preface in two ways, okay? Because I'm here representing orthopedics. Like I said, there's a medical pathway and a surgical pathway. So I'm going to start with the surgical pathway because I did do 3 years of orthopedic surgery residency and I work with orthopedic surgeons all the time. So surgical pathway means you are on call. And by being on call, you, depending on the group that you join, have 24 hours or have a whole weekend where you are the person in charge. So it means that, 10 cases of surgeries could come in. It could be one case of surgery, right? Luckily, kids don't need a bunch of surgeries that are emergent all the time. And in sports, I'm sorry, in orthopedics, some of the things outside of fractures and injuries can be kind of like done electively. I think that again, if you're passionate about being in the operating room, just know that the surgical lifestyle does require call. It's not a bad thing. Many of my colleagues, they go on ski holidays with their families. They're able to have families, and even the women in our group. I'm very proud that the organization I'm a part of, half of the 14, half of the faculty or more are women. And they are women that are spine surgeons, women that are hand surgeons, women that do hip reconstructions. So I'm at a phenomenal center where because we have diversified the field, we bring with the certain requirements of like that whole work-life balance and or I say work-life integration. Party in terms of the medicals. Sorry. So the day in the life of a surgeon, usually first case starts around 7:30. So you got to get to the hospital before that. You got to pre-operative clearance of your case. You got to review your case. You got to meet with anesthesia and other parts of the team. You do your cases. Then sometimes those days can be short. Sometimes those days can be long if there are surgical misadventures, right? Life happens. And then a lot of the surgeons are also in clinic because they got to get the cases to the operating room. And so clinic, a lot of my surgical colleagues have clinic maybe 2 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week, which is different compared to other orthopedic surgeons in adult practice that may have less clinic and they're in the operating room more. So that's for operating. I'm not a surgeon, so want to just disclosure, I'm not a surgeon. I am a pediatrician that did a 1 year non-surgical orthopedic fellowship. And so I'm on the medical side. And so I do clinic. That's what I do. I have been able to nicely work out my schedule that I do clinic 3 to 4 times a week. So I have one kind of admin day. So you guys are catching me on my admin day, admin and research type of day where I do research papers. I have my research meetings. I work on creative tasks. And I just actually my kids turned 1 and 5 this past weekend, so I drove down to Disneyland. So again, it's possible to do that. I think medicine, you're entering a great time. I use AI a lot. I used AI to make this presentation, full disclosure. I use AI, they have a scribe. So the big thing with medicine right now across all fields, you're going to hear doctors whine and whine about doing notes, right? We love seeing patients. We don't like the admin stuff, paperwork, right? And so having an AI scribe for me, I am able to leave. I left clinic. I saw 20 patients on Friday, then got packed for Disney, and I was able to close out 95% of my notes before going. And so I think it's in terms of like when you have kids, I don't know how many of you guys are parents on this, or thinking of becoming parents, but you can do this. It actually makes you a better doctor and a better time management person because now you don't have a choice. You don't have the whole day in front of you. You have to get things done in a certain amount of time. So hope that answers your question.
All right. Next we have Daniel. Daniel, you're still muted if you have a question. Yep, there
Sorry
you
about that.
No
Yeah,
problem.
so I understand that AI is becoming pretty relevant in medicine, and there's concerns about it taking over a lot of jobs. So I'm wondering if orthopedics is one of those jobs where you think could be taken over, or you think it's gonna work off medicine. I
Yeah,
mean
it's
AI.
a Daniel, yeah, super charged topic right now in terms of like is your doctor going to be an AI doctor and whatnot. I'm in the camp where I embrace technology. Clearly I'm involved in a bunch of med tech stuff and innovation. I think it's going to be part of like helping with workflow. I don't think it's going to be doing our surgeries for us in terms of from a surgical standpoint. I don't think AI is going to be able to cast a patient or be able to like do Botox in a kid that has cerebral palsy. But I think we are going to be able to leverage those tools to become better clinicians and be able to help with that work-life balance that I was talking about in terms of being a doctor. Because even like so there's open evidence is like an AI tool, like you go to get answer questions, or like we are going to be the myth busters because ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, all those things, like they don't know the specifics of the human being in front of you. They don't know the social things I talked about, like my patient is homeless. How do I send them home with a cast to the homeless shelter? Just things like that. I don't think we are there yet, and I'm not sure if we will get there. I don't have a crystal ball. That's for your generation to kind of figure out those things. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting time to be in medicine and to be a student pursuing medicine. And in terms of like the test taking and the other things that it could help with, but it can be a slippery slope. So kind of also, if you're leveraging AI to help, it can help with the outline, but maybe not answering the test questions for you in terms of that muscle brain power you have to use.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
go. Next is Tamina.
Hi, Dr. Bent. Thank you so much for taking the
Morning.
time to chat with us so early this morning.
No
Um,
problem.
so I am a non-traditional student, and I previously worked in clinical research, and I really loved it. But ultimately, I want to do medicine. But at the same time, I kind of don't want to like let go of my like joy in clinical medicine, if that makes sense. So I was just wondering, like, how could you talk just a little bit more about how you got into it and like how did you learn how to do things like grant writing and stuff? Like, how did you figure out you could help contribute to clinical research?
Yeah, great question. And definitely, I don't know you, but I hear your passion for it. So I think it's in terms of a two parts. So when you're doing research and you're going into like the pre-med path, which is arduous, I think that um, it's really hard to like get things like like from the ground up. I think it's much easier to get on something that's already going and already well supported. So, like I had mentioned here, in terms of like my orthopedic team, my cast tech, my nurse, my folks that are on the team, I think it's the same thing for research. So, I think when you comes to grant writing, we have a whole office that does grant writing. I think that we have, and they can query things in terms of grants. I have a research associate that works with me. Our orthopedic department has a whole research team. So we have research associates, clinical research coordinators, and stuff like that. So I think you bring the ideas and the clinical problems when you are in the clinic, and then the team is able to execute those things with me in terms of writing papers. Our team knows they do the methods and the results, and I do the intro and the discussion in terms of interpreting things. And I think that has allowed me to get quite a bit of manuscripts out. I've been in my current job for like, it's my first job out of fellowship. I've been here for 9 years, and I've like tripled my research productivity because of kind of that model. So I think it's something, if you are passionate about, find mentors that are also doing it, and how they're doing it, because everyone does it differently. Find out about the team and kind of how you can leverage the team to be able to do those things. Because I remember like during, I think, my fellowship, I had to like write an IRB application, and my fellowship was only a year. So you know that things take quite a long time in the IRB. And I think looking back, it just been easier to get on a project that was already up and running, and learning those things. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Next up is Huan.
So I heard that you had to prepare for 16 years. How did you sustain yourself throughout that period?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, during training, you're still living, right? And so, like 4 years of undergrad, many folks are doing that now. And, I think that again, I was lucky. I went to school that was 45 minutes from my parents and my family. I was able to see my family. I was able to take advantage of exercising. I've been able to travel. I haven't, I think the biggest thing is, as you're training, you're not waiting for life to happen. Life is already happening for you guys. So I think that, some people feel like you just go into this like bubble and you're just training and that's it. But life is happening around you. Family events may be happening about you. You may go through your own personal challenges. So I think it's important in terms of like being able to sustain yourself through things that you enjoy. I truly enjoy travel. And so sometimes I would be like, oh, there's a medical mission trip, and I like to travel. That's like a double-edged sword, right? I'm able to travel, and I'm able to, get an experience to show me medicine. So I went to Haiti. I went to Haiti. I've been to Haiti 3 times. One was during twice during medical school, and once during residency. And yes, I got to go to Haiti during residency, which is even a more challenging time to do anything. I was able to go to Ghana for a medical trip when I was in undergrad for 2 months. So I think you got to kind of find, kind of be able to merge things that you enjoy, go back to your why in terms of why you're doing things. And again, you got to be able to live your life as you're building your story to become a doctor.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I think this is going to be our last question before Dr. Bent has to leave.
Sorry,
Dr.
guys.
Bent, is there a preferred method of communication that people can reach out to you at if they want to?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead and sorry, I can put my email in the chat. I do typically, I am on Instagram, but the messages, I'm an elder millennial, guys, so I'm not like super tech savvy, but this is my, uh, Let me just make sure I'm giving you guys the right email because I have several. Um, Yes. So that's my Gmail. You can feel free to email me. Just let me know, reference that it was this session so it doesn't go to spam. And I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have if you want more clarity on some of the resources or other things as well.
All right, wonderful. So if like you all just heard, that is Dr. Ben's email. If you have a question that like we didn't get to today that you're really passionate about and you want to ask her, definitely email her, and then there's a QR code to her Instagram that you can follow, but maybe don't message. All right, we'll take one last question before she has to leave today, and that will be Divya.
Hi, doctor. Again, thank you so much for your presentation. I just wanted to ask what the biggest challenge during medical school or even residency was, and how did you overcome it? Just because I've been seeing like so many crazy stories, like I just want to hear your experience and journey.
Yeah, so I think for me, I think each pathway, each part of my journey was challenging. I'm not like the strongest academic person, and so and battling imposter syndrome was challenging for me. I think the biggest thing was kind of I alluded to a little bit was that pivot I made. It's very difficult to get into orthopedic surgery residency. It's like one of the highly coveted ones, so you have to have like really high board scores. I was lucky that my board scores were good enough to enter orthopedics. And I think that for me, there was so much work to get to that point. And then I arrived and realized that the field, in terms of, I enjoyed the surgeries, I enjoyed the patient interactions, but I think it was kind of the other side of things that I didn't think about as much with I was in a place that was far from home, didn't have my village there, and was very isolated. And so it was very challenging to kind of make that decision that, okay, maybe orthopedic surgery is not for me, and dovetail into another specialty, right? So you don't hear a lot of people in residency that change specialties in residency. It's not common, but it does happen. And I think that in terms of like you can only get so much knowledge as a student before you have to make a decision about what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I think that really when you're on rotate, when you all get into medical school and you are on rotations, getting an idea of what the culture is and kind of saying, am I okay with this culture and accepting it? Or am I going to rise above and I'm going to make my own culture somewhere else? And so for me, deciding orthopedic surgery was not for me anymore. Making that pivot, having that conversation with my program directors. I wasn't doing very well as well in the program, and so it was a lot of uncomfortable conversations. It was a lot of imposter syndrome and feeling like I was a failure. And I'm not a failure. I am the first doctor in my family. I had clubfoot, like I said, so I would leave the OR at like 10 o'clock at night during my orthopedic surgery residency, and I couldn't walk. Like I was limping. I had surgery doing orthopedic surgery, my actual residency. I had a birth issue that I had to have surgery during my residency. So I was like literally, they were talking about getting consents. I literally had to go in a wheelchair in the emergency room and get consents. And so it just wasn't sustainable for me. And so having to make that transition was very hard. But on the other side of it, I'm still doing orthopedics. In fact, I'm doing orthopedics in a way where I don't have any weekends that I have to work and I don't have any calls. So the lifestyle part is huge. I'm able to make an impact. I didn't have it in these slides, but let's talk real like money, like salary. It's very, doctors make six figures, some make even seven figures. And so you have to also decide what's important to you. I wasn't interested in pursuing an orthopedic surgery salary of, again, I'm going to keep it really broad, but at least like 300, 500, 600,000 plus, right? Um, And that may sound like a lot of money to people. It definitely did to me as like again, first generation who had high school education parents. But I'm okay with the salary that I have. I am able to live my life, provide for my two kids, travel when I want. And you're still like in the top 10%, or so in the country of earners. So I think like shifting your perspective and like you may feel like a failure, but you, in the grand scheme of your larger village and context, you have to give yourself some grace and see, like, in terms of your own personal limits. So, long-winded answer. Hope that it's helpful in times of providing some insights where kind of challenges are going to come. It's not about the challenge that defines you, it's about how you persevere. And again, progress is better than perfection.
Thank you. You're so strong. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. You guys are too. You're here during your summer where you could just be kicking back.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bent. If everyone could give a virtual round of applause for Dr. Bent, and thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that you took the time to wake up early and come hang out with us virtually.
No problem. Thank you guys. Hope that you enjoy and good luck. And yeah, definitely reach out if you need anything.
Okay, so for everyone else, we're gonna take a 2, 3 minute break. If you need water, go to the bathroom, anything like that. Today, you guys are stuck with me all day. I will be running our emergency medicine workshop. Um, for those of you who have not met me before, I spent time working as an EMT, and so I take the time every program to run the emergency medicine workshop. I think it's a really engaging one that you guys all learn a lot from. So we'll take 2, 3 minutes. We'll get our, rejuvenate, grab our water, go to the bathroom, and then um, we'll get right into it because we have a lot to cover and it's gonna be really exciting.
Could we do a quick selfie, like a
Yeah, of
good
course.
post selfie? I don't know how to do it, so if you could do it and then share it with me. I
Yeah.
don't have everybody on my screen. Sorry. It's limits the panel, but would love to. Thank you guys for this opportunity and great questions, guys. Keep asking questions.
Okay. How do I do the full screen? I have to remember how
Let
to
us
do
know when
this.
you're ready. I could old school take my camera, but I don't know how to do that either.
I'm just seeing if I can get a bigger one because I know Davina does this. Okay, we're gonna do it like this. All right, cool. All right.
Camera's on for everybody if you
Camera's
want to
on
show
if
your
you're on.
face.
Yeah. All right. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity and enjoy the rest of your summer. Good luck on your journey.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll take another extra minute. So it's 10:21 for me. Wherever you are, it should be something 21. At 23, we'll get started. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Okay, so everyone, let's hopefully you can sh see my screen. You should be able to. Um, I will have the chat open for this. We're gonna have a decent amount um of activities for you guys to participate in. So please do type in the chat. I only ask that we're not gonna unmute until the end, and raise your hand for that, just because there'll be a lot of like quick things that just like type in the chat. But at the end, we'll do some case studies that people can raise their hand and I'll call upon people. So welcome to our emergency medicine workshop. I'm really excited to do this. I always love teaching this and I love being in the field and getting to experience being on the ambulance. We are going to cover a lot today and it will be quick because I want to get to the case studies. I think that you learn better when you're actually, in the case studies and learning it um, than when I'm just talking at you all. So you might miss something. It's okay. We'll obviously post the slides like we do for everything else, and you guys can review these later. But we're gonna run through stuff so that we can get to we can get to the case studies as fast as possible. So first off, a little how we doing today, guys? You guys can put how you're feeling. Just hit me with the numbers. I know it's early for some of you, like Dr. Bent, who are on the West Coast. Um, I'm now awake. I'm on the East Coast, but it took me a minute to wake up, but I'm feeling pretty good now. I'm feeling more like I don't know, maybe a 6. I'm feeling good. Cool. Sweet. So welcome to our emergency first aid and CPRC workshop. So first, just a little bit of background for people who aren't aware. When you go and you get, your CPR certification or first aid certification, they're these acronyms, all they mean are BLS stands for basic life support. So that is normally just CPR and nothing else. Um, and then C stands for children and A stands for all. That's pretty much it. That's all there really is to know, but you will see these acronyms here and there, but that's pretty much it. So first, what are the three C's in CPR assistance? And as I go on, there are going to be a lot of slides like this where there's a question. If people know them, you can put them in the chat. But this isn't a quiz. This is just me talking. Um, so they are check, call, and care. So the first thing you have to do is check what's going on. So that involves the scene or, the environment you're in, um, and then the area as well. So the scene being, the person who's hurt, or let's say a car accident, and then the area being everything surrounding, and then obviously the patient themselves. And then the next thing is to call. Oops. The next thing is to call. So this is, if you're a bystander, this would be calling 911 or calling whatever the emergency number where you are is. Could be, asking someone nearby for assistance. And then the third is care. So we're going to go through a few different scenarios today. Some of them as if you are the emergency responder yourself, and some of them as if you're just like a person walking down the street with various EMR training. So we'll see depending on the scenario, you may not have to call just because you are the ambulance, you're the ones being called, and in some you'll have to call. So when we're checking the scene and area, a very, very common, you'll hear this at most of your trainings, is no fire, no wire, no gas, no glass. This is the main hazards that are in the area. Um, you do not want to enter an environment that is potentially harming to you as the first responder, unless you're a firefighter and you're trained for it. But as EMTs, as paramedics, it's really important that you are able to, take care of patients in an environment that won't be harming to you. Um, you do not want to run in somewhere and potentially get hurt yourself and then not be able to help people because you didn't take the 3 seconds to be aware of what's going on and make sure that everything's safe. So that includes gas. You do not want to be a part of a gas like bomb that gets sparked. Um, And then stuff like, think, why are so many people lying down? That could be because toxic gas and then they've passed out, things like that. So yeah, take a few seconds to check the scene. This is like really important always. You never know, like even if you have partners or other people are on the scene, it's always good to do it. Every set of eyes is important. And if you see firearms, people attacking each other, do not engage. You are not the police. I guess if you are the police, then you're trained to do it. I am not a policeman. I do not know how to do that. Let the police handle it. Go treat people when it's safe to treat people. That is super important. Another thing, just very brief, we're going to talk about is if you see a knife, this goes for pretty much anything inside of someone else. Do not remove it. Um, if you pull a knife out or arrow or a pipe or any sort of foreign object that is in someone and it is bleeding, it might be the only thing keeping that person alive. If you pull an object out that is severed a major artery or even one of the lesser arteries, depending on, how badly it's been severed, that could result in them bleeding out if you pull it out. It might be the only reason they're alive could be because that object is still plugging the artery and preventing bleeding out. So if you ever see something like that, it says chest, but this is any, large area of the body that has blood. So basically like not that the hand is probably fine, but like anything that is near an artery, um, do not remove it. Call 911, try and stabilize the surrounding wound, and try and keep the patient conscious. And then another note is check baby first before parents and guardians. Babies can't really communicate. So if parents and guardians can communicate, they can tell you what's going on while you're checking the baby. Two things that we need to talk about are the differences between when you are seeing a conscious patient and an unconscious patient. That has to do with the fact that a conscious patient can communicate what's going on with you, and they're probably breathing if they're conscious. So those are the two really big things we have to think about in the difference. And then something to think about, regardless of the patient, is vital signs. There are four main blood vital signs. There's a fifth actually as well that I didn't put on here, which is blood sugar. But four main vital signs that we talk about a lot when doesn't matter what's going on with someone, you're going to check blood temper or body temperature, fever, you want to rule out infection, that kind of stuff. This can be done orally with a thermometer. This can be done under the armpit. It can be done. Nowadays, we have the handy dandy thermometers that you just like, you know, it goes against someone's forehead. They scan the forehead, and you're like, oh, okay, we know your temperature, which is really, really great, and that's quick. Pulse rate, so how fast your heart is pumping. Respiration rate, how many breaths you're taking per minute normally is how we calculate this. And blood pressure. So there we hello? There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so examining the scene. When we first get there, regardless of a conscious or unconscious patient, we're gonna ask ourselves in that, 3 seconds, really quick, do we see any sharp objects, glass, wires, gas, disasters? You're gonna introduce yourself. This is really important. You want to say who you are. If you're, arriving on the ambulance, you say, "Hey, I'm Rourke. I'm an EMT." Or if you're on the street, you could be like, "Hey, my name is Rourke. Like, I have medical training. Like, let me help you." Um, you want to get consent. Consent is very, 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 very important. We've talked about this in a bunch of our sessions. There was one last week where we talked about uh, consent in ethics with Zoe. We talked about, we had that case study with Zoe about the lawyer who had surgery for cancer. And consent is extremely important. You do not want to help someone who does not want to be helped. They're going to be difficult. They could potentially sue. You could do something to harm them because you're struggling because they don't want your assistance. It is very important that you introduce yourself, you get consent. If, for instance, you are a civilian and you say, "Hi, I'm Rourke," or "Hi, whatever your name is, I am an EMT, I'm off duty, can I help you?" And they say no, and you think they are in danger, you call 911. If you are a EMT and you get somewhere, and for instance, I've been called to domestic violence, and so I've been, I've showed up, the apartment knocked on the door. They're like, we got nothing going on, like we don't want to, like they don't want to let us in. That's fine. I can't force myself into your apartment. I've been called because heard there was a medical issue. Want to make sure that everyone is safe and okay here. If they refuse to let me even see what's like, be like just check it out and make sure it's okay. Cool. I'll call 911. The police will come talk and make sure that everyone is okay. I'm not here to, judge anyone. I'm not here to, take down criminals. I'm not Batman. My goal is to just make sure that the person that I'm getting called for is safe. Cool. Next, if you do get consent, and hopefully you do, don't stop. It's really important that you don't stop and, preemptively think, oh, this person's going to be okay for whatever reason. Um, it's important that you keep doing whatever you're doing until either A, you get to the hospital, the scene gets extremely unsafe, or C, the more EMS arrives. It's really important that um, well, also, if someone stops, don't stop doing CPR if someone starts to breathe. But you want to still be monitoring them because they could, go back into cardiac arrest or something else could happen to them. But you want to keep giving them treatment in some way. If there's a really important reason that ambulances and whatnot have multiple people on them, beyond the fact that you want to have a driver and also someone who can monitor the patient in the back, and that is because it is important that having someone else there to trade off. When you're doing CPR, it's really, really important that you're doing good compressions. And sometimes you do CPR for like 20 or 30 minutes, and after a few minutes, you get tired. So it's good to have someone else there that you can trade off with. Cool. So when you have a conscious patient, it's important that you ask them some questions. This is the model that I learned when I was trained to be an EMT, and it's called the sample questions. People probably have different models depending on where you are, but these questions kind of give you a good idea of what is going on with a person. So S stands for signs and symptoms. What are you feeling? Can you get some, easy answers like, oh, like you're a diabetic and you haven't eaten, your blood sugar is really low. That's good to know. Things like allergies, medications that they're taking, past medical history, last intake. Means food and water consumed. Like I said, for diabetic or someone like that, food and water intake is very important. And events. What happened? What do they remember? This could do like really rule out things like fainting and memory loss and things like that. Uh, the three C's are call or check, call, and care in that order. So and then with an unconscious patient, this is a little bit different. You can't talk to them. Ideally, hopefully, if you have an unconscious patient, there's someone else nearby that has seen what happened, and ideally a family member or something that can give you more information. But if not, you have implied consent in most places. This is generally a worldwide theme now, is that there's laws protecting first responders from being ruled as not having consent with someone who can't respond because it's in their best interest. You want to help them, and you can't talk to them. So most places have what we call implied consent. Um, and so you'd walk up to the patient, and then ideally you want to put them on their back if you can, and then you want to try and wake them up. If you can't wake them up, then you move into more drastic kind of circumstances. That includes clapping. This is just the methods I use. Clapping, talking to them. You tap them on the shoulder. Does anyone know off chance why we tap them on their shoulder? I'll give it a second because they could be deaf is a great answer. That is definitely one of the reasons. Stimulus. Yeah. Okay. I saw it. Great answer from Brittany. Because they could be deaf is one that I didn't think about when writing this, but it absolutely is a reason. Um, normally people with hearing deficiencies will still like understand clapping if you do it like right next to them because they'll feel the vibrations. But tapping them and like using physical contact is like for deaf individuals is a reasonable approach. Um, but you want to think about the ideal reason to clap before touching someone is just for consent purposes. Because if you clap and or talk to them and they wake up, then you don't have to touch them before getting their consent, which is just, a considerate thing to do as another human being. Um, but we tap their shoulders to stimulate muscle contractions in their neck because it's right next to their brain, and hopefully that wakes them up. Um, so next step is ask. So if you tap them on their shoulders and nothing's happened, you want to use the resources around you as your team. In the field, you don't really have an existing team besides, if you're on ambulance with one other person or two other people, dumb. And if you're by yourself and you just like see an accident happen, you have no team. So you want to ask someone nearby to call 911. And then ideally ask another to bring an AED. An AED is another way of saying a defibrillator, and a lot of places now have defibrillators in buildings and stuff like that that are easy to access and have kind of like maps towards them. Some places even have, if you call 911, they'll direct you to an AED and like have the ability to like check what building you're in and like where the nearest one is, which is really, really cool. And also AEDs now have built-in audio speakers that kind of talk you through how to give CPR and how to use the machine, which is very, very good. It makes things a lot easier for people who don't have training or have minimal training, being able to be participant in the team of helping people. Um, so while these other individuals are doing it, you want to tilt their chin back. This just looks like this, tilting like that. That's to open the airway in case anything is blocking, because when you're like this, you can compress your own airway. And you want to place your ear by their nose and look at their chest. This is to check their ABCs. I believe some of the other um, guest speakers we've had have talked about the ABCs, and that stands for airway, breathing, and circulation. And these are the main three things that we're checking when we're dealing with any sort of patient that is unconscious, and even conscious patients a lot. These are like the main things because these are the things that keep people alive and healthy before other things. You will survive missing a finger. You will not survive if your heart is not working or if you're not breathing. So for ABCs, you want to check. So you put your ear by their nose and you look at their chest. Your ears by their nose because you want to try and hear if they're breathing, and you look at their chest to see if it's rising up and down. Um, so if you do that for 5 to 10 seconds, ideally you will be able to hear, feel, and see them breathing. And if they're breathing, that's okay. Everything, take vitals. If they're, you know, blood pressure and everything's okay, and they just can't wake up for whatever reason, we can continue to move on. So they're probably, maybe they hit their head and they're fainted, um, or some people are just fainters, or maybe they had a seizure or something, and you don't know. And you can, take their vitals, take them to the hospital, whatever happens. Um, so, but yeah, so ideally they're breathing. That's great. Hopefully, if not, then we have to move on to other things. So in this case, if you've called, you've done the ABCs and you can hear breathing sounds, fantastic. Hopefully this person is okay. That would be amazing. I would love to see that every single time. Um, we normally put them in what's called the recovery position. These are some graphics to show it. You put them over this and gently roll them. This position is for a few reasons. One, it's so they don't roll themselves. Hopefully, this will keep them stable in this position because of just the way the body is positioned. And secondly, it will keep their airway open in case they throw up or something like that. That way, they won't choke on their own throw up. Um, but it's just a very like easy thing to do to just minimize those potential fear risks. Normally, if they're breathing and they're just faint, You're gonna be okay. You can take them to the hospital or try and wake them up, and just sit with them, and they'll be okay. Something good to do though is to continue to check their ABCs every, minute or two, couple minutes. You just want to make sure they're continuously breathing. Just because someone is breathing when you checked it does not mean that in a few minutes from now they will still be breathing. So it's really important to continuously give care until there is a better, uh, either they're at the hospital, they're awake, they can communicate, something like that. Now, what could be the causes of someone who's unconscious and breathing? We touched briefly on diabetes, so really low blood sugar might cause someone to pass out. Dehydration might cause someone to pass out. Having a weak stomach, for people who aren't familiar with the term, it just means like people who can't handle blood or like gross things. They might, just be faint from like horror movies, that kind of thing. And then also seizures can cause someone to be unconscious and breathing afterwards as well. Now, if someone's unconscious and not breathing, so you've done all the checks, you've called 911, you're getting someone to come, you've checked their breathing, it's not happening, they're not waking up. Um, Now it's time to do CPR. If you can and you have access to it, you definitely want to use gloves and a mask if possible. If you're in the field, sometimes you might not have the option to do that. I would definitely try to. Um, when I was an EMT, I'd always have like four sets of gloves in my pocket just to be careful, and a mask whenever needed because you don't know, what the person has been touching or anything like that. And then you want to give CPR. I'm sure most people have seen CPR in a video or something like that, in a movie, maybe, on one of the, many medical TV shows. Um, but it's pretty self-explanatory exactly how it kind of is in the movies, even though some people don't do it perfectly. You have your hands interlocked with one another. There's kind of two methods to this. Some people like this method where you're like hand on top of hand and you're pushing. Some people like to, grip their outer hand with their inner hand and then push like this. Both are acceptable. It's pretty much whatever's comfortable for you. And then the standard when I was learning to be an EMT, it could be slightly different depending on where you are, would be 30 compressions and then two rescue breaths. Um, Rescue breaths are not mouth to mouth how you might see in movies. Uh, we don't really use that as medical professionals anymore. We use what I'll show you as like a pump, and it does the medical breath, it does the rescue breaths for you, so you don't actually have to touch your lips to another individual, which can be pretty unsanitary, especially if it's potentially, an infectious disease worry. Um, so we use that. And then for children, it's the exact same. Children are generally just, I think normally the definition when I was learning was about 3 years old. Um, and it just you go deep, you don't go as deep into their chest. So if you're going 5 centimeters for adults, it's like three and a half for, or 2 to 3 for children, something like that. You don't want to go as deep. Obviously, it depends. A 4-year-old might be, a lot smaller than a 12-year-old. So, use your best judgment, but you want to go not as deep, because there isn't as much body. And then same thing, 30 compressions. Um, And then for babies, you want to use two finger compressions instead of using this whole hand method. Use two fingers. Some people use two fingers like this and they'll hold the baby and just push like that. Some people will hold the baby from the back. For example, I have this ball here. Let's pretend this is the baby. So I'll hold this is the baby's back and then the chest, and you use two thumbs, like this as your two fingers. I have never perform CPR on a baby, so I don't know what I would use. I think the thumb method is feels more comfortable, but I think the finger method feels a little bit more controlled. Why do babies get more compressions than children and adults? They don't. It's the same exact amount. It's just the method is different from the hands to the fingers. And then you want to do 100 to 120 compressions per minute. Um, so, I'm sure people have heard songs and stuff like, The classic is "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees. Um, but you can use any songs in your head. That's what I use. And then other people have and what other people do is they have like a metronome app that they bring, or a metronome that just click like lets you know click 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 on every time you're supposed to do it. Whatever works for different people, as long as you're within that, that close range. Um, that's what matters. So, like I said, I have an image here of mouth to mouth. We don't actually use that anymore. I couldn't find a good image of an ambu pump, but I'll show you. Here on the left is an ambu pump. This is what it looks like. On the far end of the like plastic tube part is where the bag would go normally. Um, but yeah, so this part would go over the far left part would go over the person's mouth. There's different sizes for if there's children. And then you squeeze this blue, it could be a different color, but this blue part and it puts air into their lungs and then it takes it out. So you use these instead. This is just what a defibrillator looks like. There's many different models and they all look different. As you can see at the bottom, there's that little speaker part that I was talking about that newer models have that actually talk to you, which is super cool. And then on the right here, we have a little airway. Um, what these do is you put them in if someone is unable to breathe, or if you think there's a blockage in their throat, to get that airway open before using the ambu pump. Some other things that I just wanted to show you guys of like equipment that you might use. Catheter, these can be used for many different things. In the ambulance, normally they're used to connect oxygen tanks to masks, things like that. Um, but yeah, this would be an oxygen pump. Normally you have like a small transportable one, like a 2 liter one that you can bring off the ambulance, and then you'll have like a much bigger one on the ambulance. And then these catheters, and then suction, is these little suction devices that we use, and these are used to if someone has like throw up or like excess liquid or fluid in their mouth while you're trying to clear the airway, you can use the suction to suction it up, and get that airway cleaned up. All right, we are going to speed through some of these other um, different instances. I'm seeing in the chat quickly. Let me answer this question. Yes, it is a full motion of going up and down. It's not like one, two, it is one. Um, so partial versus complete choking. Why do we go backwards? There we go. If someone is partially choking, that means their epiglottis, which is in the throat, is slightly but not fully plugged. The biggest thing to tell if someone is partially choking versus actually choking is if they can talk. If they can talk, cough, wheeze, whatever, it is not fully plugged. If they cannot do that, it is fully plugged. So, again, first things we want to do, can I help you? You want to get consent. Most of the time, if someone's choking, they're going to be like, yes, please, yes, please. Um, but it's always important to, check just very quickly, can I help you? Um, if someone is coughing or talking and wheezing, get them to keep coughing. The motion of coughing itself might dislodge the object that is blocking their epiglottis by itself, which is the best case scenario is that they just cough and it comes out. Um, if you like as you're doing this, it's always good to get someone else to call 911 and get an AED. The reason you get an AED is because if someone is choking for long enough, they won't be able to breathe, they'll go unconscious, and then, the ABCs all get blocked up. So you might need the AED if you cannot dislodge the object and get them to start breathing. And then, if it becomes complete choking, not if it's partial, but when it becomes complete, you can use abdominal thrusts. On the far right here, you can see an image of someone doing an abdominal thrust. It's exactly what it sounds like. You get behind, you kind of get your hand enclosed like this, you hold it together, and you go into the abdomen and upwards and try and dislodge the object. If someone is completely choking, it means the epiglottis is completely stuck And like I said, 2 to 3 minutes without breathing, they'll become unconscious. And then, a couple minutes after that, their brain will start to deteriorate. So you want to very quickly address this and try and get the person to, be unclogged and spit up whatever is being choked on. So how you do this is the abdominal thrust, which we just talked about briefly, but that would be bend the patient slightly forward. Ideally, you're taller than the person or around the same size. If you're shorter, you might want to ask someone nearby if they can do it, if anyone else has training, or you can guide them through it. If you can't get good kind of motion, that is why we want people to bend slightly forward. To try and help get a good motion, but if you can't, you can always ask for someone else to help you. Put your leg in front of theirs so you get that to get that good kind of stabilized motion. And then ideally you do 5 abdominal thrusts, and hopefully by the time you've done 5, if not sooner, it's already been dislodged. Um, then you can also do chest thrusts after. Um, there's one main reason, well, two. There's two reasons, but one is probably more common than the other. To use chest thrusts instead of just abdominal thrusts. Can anyone, if you know in the chat, tell me why you might do it over someone's chest? The same exact motion, just higher up instead of their abdomen. Take a guess. Pregnant? That's one of the two. Let's see if anyone gets the other one. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, these are pretty good ideas. So yes, there, I got it. Okay. Great job, Jamie. Janie. Um, it is for people in wheelchairs. So pregnancy is one of them, and then wheelchairs is the other. Injury or surgery, those could be reasons people are in wheelchairs. But the reason is for people in wheelchairs, so that you can still get them without having to try and move them out of the wheelchair and waste that precious time. So like I said, there are a few different special cases that would be wheelchairs. Put the brakes on the wheelchair. Use the chest because the abdomen is too hard to reach. And arms around the top of the patient. And then for height differences, like I said, you can get someone else. You can try and position them differently. Putting them on their knees could be helpful. If someone can kneel in front of you and then get that height difference to be more manageable, that could be super helpful. Um, and then, as usual, call 911, open the door, try and get help. Um, if you're in an apartment building, pulling the fire alarm might be helpful to, encourage the emergency response really quickly. It's a reason to pull set a fire alarm. There aren't many, but that's one of them. And then choking in babies. This is a method that when I learned it, they call it smoking the baby because you take your fingers, kind of like if you're smoking, and you use it over the baby's mouth, and you put the baby face down. So, what do I have here? If this is the baby and this is the front side and this is the back side, put the baby face down, open the mouth, and then you tilt the baby's face down at like a 45-degree angle, kind of like this, and then you hit their back like this with the kind of palm area of your hand. Um, and hopefully that will dislodge the object in it. When I was trained, it was 5 back blows, and then you tilt the baby back over, and then start doing CPR on the baby immediately. Kind of, the thumb method I showed or the finger method. And you just keep doing this until you're dislodged. This is because babies are much smaller, so they'll go into respiratory failure a lot faster. And so if you do this method, also because of the way that the baby's airways are done, a chest thrust might also just dislodge whatever's um in the baby's airway. So you do this method. Oh, I have a YouTube video, but I'll share it with you guys after because we're going a little bit fast today because we want to get through all the different um case studies. Part 4. strokes and heart attacks. So strokes and heart attacks are commonly seen issues with the heart and the brain. Um, there are two different types of strokes. One is ischemic, and that means lack of blood flow in the brain, and the other is hemorrhagic, which means excessive bleeding in the brain. So when you think about it like this, ischemic means, let's say there's a clot and the blood can't get to the brain, and hemorrhagic means maybe there's damage in the brain and it's bleeding out, and you're having bleeding. Um, this is a really simple kind of foolproof method for strokes that is common worldwide, and that's the FAST criteria. It refers to face, arm, speech, and time. And that's because the symptoms when seeing a stroke, the main ones are someone's face might droop. So what you might ask them to do is, can you smile? And if only half of their face smiles, might be having a stroke. Arms, if they can lift their arms like this, if they do this and one of them just drops, or they can't even do it, might be having a stroke. Speech, if their speech is slurred and they can't talk, might be having a stroke. And then the T just stands for time, and that wants to know how long has these symptoms been happening for. Um, so that when you get to the hospital, they can treat the symptoms properly. And of course, as with this, if you are not, the emergency responder responding to this, please call 911 immediately. Heart attacks, also called myocardial infractions. And this has to do with when this actually can happen for a few reasons, but the most common is a blockage of the artery that supplies the heart. Um, or the vein. So either an issue in the heart itself, or potentially in the vena cava, supplying blood directly back to the heart. Um, so it also can happen for a few other reasons, mainly issues with the heart muscle itself and having issues pumping. Or the muscle tissue around the heart that supports it being extremely weak. But these include symptoms like nausea, vomiting, chest pain. This is the very specific, commonly known symptom that is associated with heart attacks versus other chest pain is it radiates to the left shoulder and arm, which, as most people know, the heart is slightly on the left, so it radiates over to this side. Sweating and lightheadedness. Um, as usual, call 911, get the ambulance as soon as possible. And then take two ASA tablets. So that stands for acetylsilic cyclosylic acid, also known in the commonly used version as aspirin. And this is a blood thinner that will hopefully, thin out any of blockages that go to the heart. Cool. Bleeding, we have a few other small things we're going to touch, like bleeding. This is really simple. If you have a small bleed, clear bandage, compress the wound, place another bandage on top. If the wound is too big for that, for whatever reason, like a massive gash, you can use a tourniquet. These want to be about 5 to 10 centimeters above the wound, and it's really important that you don't put them on a joint. They won't work if you put a tourniquet on the elbow will move, and then it just doesn't work. It has to be a few centimeters above a joint. Um, that's pretty much it. It stops blood flow to make sure that you don't bleed too much from any wound. There are a few different types of tourniquets. Um, a lot of ambulance have ones that you just kind of put on and squeeze. I once had to make a makeshift one with a shirt and a pen, and we call that a Russian tourniquet. And basically, you just like tie the shirt or whatever, um, I guess like fabric you have, towel, shirt, whatever, and then use the pen inside the shirt to twist it really tight. Um, and I can find on and send on Slack for anyone who's interested in like makeshift tourniquets, I had to use. Um, um, but yeah, so that's that. Allergies. Allergies are present for a lot of different reasons. If people are interested in immunology, I did a research paper once for one of my classes on peanut allergies. But yeah, so allergic reactions mainly happen because of specific immunological aspects that think the body is hurting themselves when it isn't. So it reacts to certain allergens, and then your cells, either your B cells or your T cells or various immunological cells, start reacting like you are sick when you are not. Common ones are peanuts, different nuts, fish, stuff like that. Bees are common as well. What happens is the the muscles in your like the veins and the muscles in your neck dilate and then get really constrictive to the airway, and you might not be able to breathe, which is the main concern. Obviously, there are other symptoms like rashes, swollen lips, wheezing, increased heart rate, things like that. An EpiPen is what's commonly used. It's epinephrine. What it does is it counteracts that dilation and allows for relaxation in the muscles in the veins, and then you can still breathe, which is really important. So, the misconception is that EpiPen is actually a treatment. It is not. It is just a Band-Aid solution. You use the EpiPen and then you get someone to the hospital so they can be managed with steroids and further treatment. The EpiPen just gets you there. It does not save all of your life and your problems by itself. If you're using EpiPen, most of them, there are actually these really cool new EpiPen packs I've recently learned, that also can talk to you just like the defibrillators can. Um, but the old-fashioned EpiPens, the blue side, you remove the blue side, it's the cap. You insert the orange side into the upper leg, and then you push. Um, you rub the area for a few seconds after to improve circulation. And it's important. The old-fashioned saying is blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. Thank you very much in the chat. But yeah, that's the old age saying that is the truth. There is one. Then yeah, that's exactly what it is. But yeah, blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. Old age saying always works. Nowadays, like I said, there's some new cool packs that maybe don't have that and it doesn't work anymore, which saddens me, but that's okay. Some other medical emergencies you might get called for. Honestly, a lot of times when you're on ambulance, the call is probably someone who has fallen and can't get up, namely an elderly person. Um, but a lot of other calls are for minor things like this: nosebleeds, knocked out teeth, chemicals in the eye, sprains, diabetic emergencies. I've been called for a couple pulmonary edemas, which are kind of cool. That's when I think actually. Alexis last week talked about a pulmonary edema, and it happens when fluid fills up in the lungs, that isn't supposed to be there, and you have to drain it. But these are just some of the other common things that we see: asthma, and then minor wounds as well. But you guys can access this later. Like these are just very common things that we see, as well. But what I wanted to get to, and I know I talked a lot in the last little bit, is these practice scenarios. Um, so let us get through them. So if people want to raise their hand to answer questions, I will happily call upon people. But you can also just answer in the chat as well. Um, so let's get on with scenario number one. Background information. So everything we've learned today is on um, is potentially in these. So we're gonna have five. Background information. You're on an ambulance for all of these also, unless specifically said you're not. So you get called, you're like, go to this address. The information you have is an adult, 32 years old, calls complaining about chest pain. After arriving, you see the patient is anxious and sweating. What is the first thing you do? Okay. Three C's. Scene is safe. Yes. So this is you're arriving. You've checked the scene is safe. Patient is anxious and sweating. What is first thing you do? Consent. Amazing. And then after that, what is the first thing that you're gonna do medically? Right? Ask for symptoms. Amazing. So you ask the patient what happened, right? You need to know what's going on. You're doing the third C in care. After you've checked, amazing. So you ask the patient what happened and where the pain is, and they tell you pointing all over their left side and saying it hurts there and there. What do you think the patient is experiencing? Okay, I'll give people a couple more seconds to answer. Okay, I'm seeing some stroke and some heart attack. So anyone who thinks heart attack want to explain why, anyone who says stroke want to say why they think that. Because I'm seeing a pretty mixed bunch. I see someone's hand is raised. Hannah.
Um, it seems more likely to be a stroke because they're saying it's if they're pointing at their left side, then they're probably not using their left side. I could be wrong, but like maybe they're unable to move their left side.
Okay, cool. So you what you would say is then you think you should look for fast symptoms potentially, like
Yeah.
ask them to smile to
Mhm.
try and rule out a stroke. Cool. Okay. All right. So for this scenario, the key thing was the left side. So in this case, it was going to be an MI or a heart attack. And Hannah, what you just said is perfect, a perfect way to rule out the stroke. So you'd say the fast, can you raise your arms for me? Can you smile? And that would kind of rule out, oh, I'm having pain on my left side, but my left side's still working. Whereas for an MI, oh, I answered this question, sorry. No fast symptoms. That's the main thing. We don't see any, they don't tell us anything about it. We know sweating is part of a heart attack potentially. We know that the left side radiating pain is like the key heart attack. This is a potential heart attack. Whereas if we rule out fast symptoms, we pretty much rule out stroke if we see this radiating pain to the left side. That being said, could still be a stroke. That's why we have to rule out stroke. But most likely in this case, this is a heart attack. Great job, everyone. You guys are using the exact kind of deduction techniques we want to use. So, case two, you get called to a school. Well, sorry, before you get called to the school, a kid goes to the school nurse because the child is feeling really lightheaded and confused. In this case, the nurse asks the child if they've eaten and drank water today. They say yes. The child continues to get worse, dizziness and fatigue until they go unconscious. The nurse calls for an ambulance. So you're going to arrive. When you get there, this is when you start to arrive. The child is the same as above. They're breathing a bit heavily, so they're still breathing. They are unconscious. You check their pulse and it's in the normal range. What do you think the next thing you should do is? And at this point, we've already covered the three C's. You're already on C, on the third C. You've checked the scenario. Everything is safe. You're in the school. The nurse, the nurse's office or wherever is safe, and you have consent from to do everything. Okay, I'm seeing some CPR. Remember, the child is still breathing, so we don't need CPR yet. But if they stop breathing, we might definitely need CPR. Okay, let's see. Check blood pressure. That is an option. Okay, I'm gonna just go through because I'm seeing some very good answers, and I want to explain why we might go to one and why not to the other. So, for trying to see if we can wake up the child, we wouldn't do that because we know the nurse has already been caring for them, so that we know that the child can't be woken up. And we wouldn't use the recovery position because the recovery position is when we get someone's breathing back and we know we've stabilized them. In this case, the chase, he's still breathing heavily and we haven't really figured out why yet. So we don't want to put him in recovery position yet. What I'm seeing from a lot of people as well is check different vitals. And so that is exactly what we're going to be doing. So temperature, we check the pulse and they're okay. We're going to check their respiratory rate, which we know they're breathing a bit heavily, so we're going to make sure. But the next few, the other ones we want to check are blood sugar and temperature to make sure, see what's going on there. So in this case, we're going to do a blood sugar test, and the test comes back at 250 milligrams per DI, which is very, very high. I know we didn't go over all of the different um, ranges for things, but in this case, I gave it to you guys. This is very high. So, what do we think happened, and why is this child feeling like this, and what should we do next? Okay, first answer is pretty good. Yeah. Okay, we're seeing diabetes. So, if this child has diabetes, what do we think happened that, and what should we do next? I'm seeing people say sugar. And there's something important to know about when it comes to diabetes, and that's this doesn't mean that the child ate too much sugar. Diabetes is the inability to regulate the sugar in the bloodstream. So that means it doesn't mean they ate too much or too little. It depends on the different person and the type of diabetes. They may just have not taken insulin, which is why I'm seeing amazing answers that we should take insulin. I'm seeing from Sion, maintain the airway, monitor vitals, and give insulin. That is 100% exactly what we should do. So, in this case, we learn later that the child did not take their insulin as they should be. Nowadays, a lot of people, get insulin through a pump and it's kind of regulatory. So in this case, maybe the pump had a malfunction. They should be given insulin and potentially taken to the hospital. Normally, to be safe rather than sorry, you take them to the hospital right away anyway. But and as you're driving to the hospital, if they wake up and start to, see symptoms clear out because of the insulin regulating their blood sugar, then you might be like, okay, it's not as emergent, but you take them to the hospital anyway because it's worrisome enough. Cool. Um, so scenario three, you're on an ambulance, you're called. All the information you have is a baby is acting strangely. Any specific things that we're thinking about right now? Why might a baby be acting strangely? And what does babies acting strangely look like? Okay, I'm seeing some choking, I'm seeing some head trauma, I'm seeing breathing issues, um, I'm seeing crying. Yeah, so something unconscious, definitely mobility issues. This baby probably is too young to have mobility stuff yet, but definitely possible for an early toddler. Um, Turning different colors. Yeah, all different things. The important thing when thinking about what is a baby acting strangely is, and that is something that the parents are not used to. Some babies cry a lot, some don't. And the important thing to know is when you get there and you start talking to the parents, you want to make sure that you're asking questions and understanding what the baby's normal patterns are like. So the parents say in this scenario that the baby is normally really fussy, lots of crying, lots of, making noises, but has been extremely quiet for the past hour and doesn't want to eat. Does that kind of give some feedback to people about what might be the issue? And in this scenario, you're talking to the parents and your partner, so the other person in the ambulance with you, starts flipping the baby upside down, and he looks like he's going to hit it from behind. What do you think your partner is doing, and why is he doing it? He or she. In this case, I when I was making this, I imagined it was a former partner of mine who is a he. Back thrust, lodging the throat, smoking the baby. Yes, this partner of yours, in this case, my old partner who I worked on the ambulance with in my mind, is smoking the baby because he thinks the baby is choking. Right? Perfect. So what he discovered is your partner discovered that the baby was choking on something while you were talking to the patient and giving the background information. Um, and he decided to start, doing the appropriate treatment and trying to dislodge the whatever food or, toy or whatever's in the baby's throat. Something to note from this kind of scenario is that a lot of times with your partner, you will divide and conquer. So that looks like in this scenario, you are the person going and talking to the parents to get a background while, your partner is getting vitals and checking the baby. Or, in another case, it might be, you know, your partner is talking to the husband or wife while you are taking vitals or parents or whatever. So that's you want to get, work in tandem to kind of figure out what's going on. All right, scenario four. We have four and five before we head out today. Um, an ambulance gets called to a house where an adult is having a partial seizure. We didn't talk a lot about seizures today, but why is it important to get there as soon as possible? To get there before they lose consciousness? Okay, that's a good reason. Yeah, everything I'm seeing so far are plausible reasons. They could get hurt from surrounding objects, can cause injury. It could escalate. Um, Lots of good reasons. Okay, so, like we talked about we didn't really touch on this much. We kind of flew through it because I really wanted to get here and have enough time to do these today. Um, but where an adult is having a partial seizure, when we talk about partial seizures, it can escalate into a full seizure, or what's also called, some people might know as a grand mal seizure. Um, and so you ideally want to kind of get whatever treatment you can, um, to, at the very least be able to monitor before it turns into a full seizure. Not all partial seizures do turn into full seizures, but in the case it does, you want to get there as soon as you can. Um, when you arrive, the seizure is escalated into a grand mal or full seizure. Same thing, just different names. And the friend that called you says you have to hold their mouth open so they can breathe. Should you do that or should you not? Okay, I'm seeing lots of no's. Anyone want to tell me why? The answer is no. I'm gonna give it a second so people can type. Yes, they could bite you. Great job. I know we didn't really touch on seizures today, but I wanted to make sure that we had a practice thing for it. And that's because they could bite you. When someone is having a seizure, not in control of their muscles. And in the past, it has happened that people lose fingers while trying to keep people's mouths open. Um, so you don't want to do that. Like I said, I know we didn't super touch on this. Um, it is not safe to try and keep someone's mouth open. Um, what are the steps you should do if someone is having a full seizure? Yeah, great answer from Harmony. Clear the area if possible, if there's any hazards to make it so that they don't, kick something or like push something onto themselves. Okay, I'm seeing some turn on their side and, recovery position. So you don't want to do anything like that until after the seizure is done. You don't really want to move them during the seizure. You do want to put them in recovery position at the end of the seizure, though. No, you don't want to restrain someone during a seizure. The only thing you can do is hold their head in position, so that they stabilize their head. But otherwise, you don't want to, hold them down and do anything like that. You want to clear the area. Um, Seeing some other things. Loosen their clothing. If you think it might be restricting, you can do that, but hopefully it's not restricting. Um, ask their friend for the situation, get more information. That is totally fine. You can ask, do they have seizures often? Is this something they know about? Do they have epilepsy? Things like that. Cool. So I know there are a bunch of different answers. So we did talk about suction before, and this is a time you could use the suction. If possible, and they're not thrashing around enough, you could use the suction catheter device to suction out the mouth if there's any throw up or liquid or anything in the mouth, and that way you could help keep the airway clean without actually, trying to put anything in the mouth. Move any nearby objects away, especially sharp or heavy ones, like we talked about. Um, an option once the thrashing kind of slows down is also an oxygen mask to help with breathing. So you could put the ambu pump in and start feeding oxygen through as well if needed. Um, and then like some people have said, once they stop spasming, you can put them in the recovery position. And of course, like we do with everything else, as soon as you can, check blood pressure, vitals. Whenever someone's unconscious, it's always good to check blood pressure, just or blood sugar, just in case. And then, if this is someone who maybe has epilepsy and they're used to it, you might not take them to the hospital. You might just, help recovery. And then if it's not, then you might take them to the hospital for further testing. Okay, our last scenario for today is practice scenario 5. And this is an ambulance gets called to a school where a child is having trouble breathing. This could be a ton of different things. And the reason I wanted to have one like this is because on the ambulance, sometimes you get a call and it's like, this is a, 34-year-old female with blah, blah, blah medical history on this medication is taking this exact thing. And you get so much information. And sometimes you get a call like this where trouble breathing. Okay, we're going to show up. So this could be for who knows how many reasons. Like every reason you guys are giving me in the chat is correct. They're all possibilities. We don't know what it could be right now, but it's important to think about all the different possibilities so that we can be prepared when we get there. Right? We talked about this. It could be all of these different things. Um, so when you get there, you want to bring everything you might need. So oxygen, masks, everything you could possibly need. EpiPens, bandages, like you don't know. So you're gonna bring everything. When they arrive, the initial assessment that you get is you take all their vitals, increased heart rate, so their pulse is up, they're feeling fatigued, and they have swollen lips. Okay. I'm seeing on the chat, no one's saying yes, this has helped you, but everyone's saying allergic reaction. So I'm going to take it yes, that it has helped most people try and narrow it down to allergies. Cool. If you're not sure yet and you want to still rule out, this could be allergies, this could be something else like an infection, and you're still not sure, you remove the child's shirt and rashes and hives can be found. Does this kind of help us out more? Yeah, I'm seeing yes. It's kind of leading us down the same path, right? Amazing. Everyone's on this. So, this is an allergic reaction, and it can cause what we call anaphylactic shock, which is when shock is when the body starts to deteriorate because of one of the few reasons. Anaphylaxis is because of allergies, and it's the heart will stop. So, what treatment should be done? I'm seeing lots of EpiPens. Yes, EpiPen is great. Um, After we use an EpiPen, we do the whole, okay, blue to the sky, orange to the thigh. We put the EpiPen in. What do we still have to do? I see rub the spot. Rub the spot for 5 seconds, not 5 minutes, but that's okay. Yep. Rub it in. We do that. And we take him to the hospital. Yes, yes, yes. Um, is there anything we should be doing? Yes, there we go, Zara. Okay. as we take them to the hospital, we're gonna recheck the vitals and just keep checking the vitals every here and there so that we can make sure that nothing worse is happening and they're still stabilized. If their symptoms improve right away, we get the EpiPen, they feel better. Should we still take them to the hospital? What do we guys think? I'm seeing lots of yeses. Why? Lots of yeses. Why? Yes, great job, everyone. EpiPen is a temporary fix. It'll stop the symptoms, but it will not keep it forever. So, something interesting that I want to note, and because this is the end, you guys killed it, is that allergies, depending on what type of allergen it is, for example, peanuts, can cause reactions up to 24 hours after like interaction with the allergens. So while normally a reaction will happen immediately or even within 2 hours of interaction, it can happen hours after, like even the next morning. So it's really important that if you have a serious allergy, that you go to the hospital and take proper precautions if exposed. Okay. So thank you everyone for listening and participating today. Um, we have a few announcements before we head off. I'm just pulling up my Slack. One second. I hope you guys enjoyed the case studies um, and everything. I'm just going to remind everyone that um, that the week 1 homework that we had for cold emailing is due tonight. You can submit on the Google form on Slack. It's also on the website. If people have questions, message in the questions channel on Slack, and they will be answered, and we will help you out. And then also for those that are interested, um, there is the medical debate later today. The information is posted on Slack. If you have any questions or want to talk about emergency medicine and working in the field, feel free to message me. I will post this slideshow on Google Drive, where you guys can all have access to it so you can review it and you can check the YouTube video that I have for how to smoke the baby properly because we didn't watch it. And then I'll reach out to Dr. Bent from earlier today to get her slides for you all into the drive as well, so you can review hers and watch the videos that weren't loading for her as well earlier. So with that, this is our second last session. This is crazy to me that we're already almost done. Summer program goes by so fast, even though we like have so much going on. It's awesome. Um, for everyone joining the medical debate tonight. I am not hosting it, but I hope you guys have a great time. It's one of my favorite activities that we do. And I will be here on Wednesday talking to you guys and hosting as well. And so I'll see you all on Wednesday for everyone that can be there. So if anyone has questions, feel free to stick around for a few minutes. I'm going to stop the recording and I'm be here. Tamina, do you have anything to say or do you have a question for me?
Yeah, I have
Yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead.
to add. If you're in the research symposium before you hop off, we have some more workshops this week. I'm gonna post a reminder in the announcements and the research channel, but I'm hosting my workshop tomorrow on Tuesday, July 21 at 7 a.m. Eastern Time or 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You don't have to attend both. I'm just having two different times because I know people are in two different time zones. So you can attend either one of my workshops tomorrow. And then there's a few more